In this video, we will review how to start a science inquiry project. We will review using a previous experiment where we chewed gum for different lengths of time and then blew bubbles. When beginning your project, you need to identify the independent and dependent variable. The independent variable is the one thing that you change in order to compare. In the bubblegum experiment, the independent variable was the amount of time we chewed the bubblegum. The dependent variable is what you measure, or in some cases you can think of it as what won. The dependent variable in our bubblegum experiment was the size of the bubble. Controlled variables are what you keep the same to make a fair experiment. If you don't have controlled variables, your data will not be accurate. You can also ask yourself, what do I need to keep the same so that my experiment isn't messed up? Or what else could affect my data? In the bubblegum experiment, some examples of controlled variables are the technique you use to blow a bubble or the brand of bubblegum. If those were different, it would mess up the experiment. Now think of our balloon and skewer experiment. What would be the variables? Pause the video and write down the variables on your paper. Next, we're going to look at how to write a question. There are lots of correct ways to write a question, but we're going to use one format to make it easy. Use the sentence frame, how does the IV affect the DV? In this case, how does the length of time the gum is chewed affect the diameter of bubbles? Pause the video and write the question for the balloon and skewer experiment. Next, we're going to write the hypothesis. A hypothesis is an idea that you can test. It's also a guess about what will be the outcome of your experiment. The most official way to write a hypothesis is with the if, then, because statement frame. In this frame, the if statement relates to the independent variable, the then statement relates to the dependent variable, and the because is just your best educated guess. From our bubblegum experiment, the hypothesis is, if you increase the amount of time you chew gum, then the diameter of bubbles will increase because the gum becomes softer and stretchier. Pause the video and record your hypothesis for the balloon and skewer experiment. We've now reached a checkpoint. Pause the video again and check your answers for the variables, question, and hypothesis before continuing. Next, we will fill in the materials. The materials are simply the things that you need in order to conduct your experiment, along with the amount. In our balloon experiment, the materials were 2 pieces of bubble gum, 1 timer, and 1 ruler. Pause the video and fill in materials for the balloon and skewer experiment. Procedures need to explain how to test your experiment. Procedures should be detailed enough that someone doing your experiment could repeat exactly what you did, even if they hadn't seen you do your experiment. When writing your procedures, think about how to make your experiment fair. This is the time to include your controlled variables into your experimental procedures. Here are the bubblegum procedures. Number 1, start timer and chew gum 30 seconds. 2, using a slow breath, blow the largest bubble possible. 3, measure bubble. 4, repeat steps 2 to 3 2 more times. 5, continue chewing gum another 2 minutes and 30 seconds. 6, repeat steps 2 through 4. You'll notice in these procedures that it explains exactly how to do the test it says how many times to repeat each step, and it says exactly what data you need to record. In this case, you need to record the size of the bubble. Pause the video and record the procedures for the balloon and skewer experiment. You are now at another checkpoint. Please pause the video and check your answers to make sure that you are on the right track. A data table should be set up before the experiment so that you can keep track of the results. In the data table, copy the independent variable in the upper left corner. Then give the examples in the left column. For example, the independent variable is length of time gum is chewed, and the two different possibilities are 30 seconds and 3 minutes. Across the top, add trials, average, and observations. In our balloon and skewer experiment, for trials, we will talk about groups. Pause the video and set up the data table for the balloon and skewer experiment. Finally, let's prepare the graph. The graph includes a boring title that includes the independent variable. The dependent variable is labeled on the y-axis, and the independent variable is labeled on the x-axis. Pause the video and set up the graph for the balloon and skewer experiment. You've reached the final checkpoint. Check to see if your data table and graph are set up correctly. When you are done, find a project similar to yours on Science Buddies or on the internet. Carefully read through the procedures so that you know how to do your experiment.